we had a mega card at Revel with FightWorld 41, and I met a man who was running around with the camera, who's been putting in a ton of work here in the Southwest combat sports scene. We're going to now work Jimmy Dukes. As soon as there it is.
How are you?
Doing all right, battling the internet right now. Hey, I got you in. Cool.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you having me
How
on.
are you doing
Thank
tonight?
you for the little intro. Good, bro. How are you?
Doing all right. Trying to get some rest and catch up. It was a busy weekend.
Yeah.
That might have been one of the wilder fight cards I've seen in a while that we were at.
The FightWorld, yeah, like what was it? The first three were like finishes, like within the first round, right?
We had a 19-second knockout and then like a 33-second knockout. Oh, okay. 19 seconds, 21 seconds, 45 seconds.
First minute. Dang. Three off the bat. That was it happened so fast too. You know what I mean? Got to give it up to the matchmaking, you know, making exciting to start off the whole event, right?
You got to give it up to them. Those amateurs, there's something about the invigoration, there's a different kind of enthusiasm about the amateurs and those first time getting to get in the cage, and they kind of just let loose.
Yeah, I know. The first match, one guy out here from El Paso, Gabriel Sejas, you know, that was his debut, and you know, was able to you know, kind of weather that quick little storm. I think William Wallace had, if I'm not mistaken, and was able to catch that leg kick, if I remember. Then dropped them, was able to get on top and finish in a spectacular fashion for sure to start off the whole card at FightWorld 41.
And quickly after that, then you had Juan Sellers. He had a right hook, a couple ground pound strikes. He gets a knockout. And Peyton Matherin, I don't know if we'll ever see that knee knockout, having his opponent basically horizontal in the air.
Yeah,
if we'll ever see that duplicated again.
Yeah, he was like, he had him against the cage, and he was off to the side. And as he was getting up, man, he had that knee already lined up, man. And if I'm not mistaken, P Money, you know, took advantage of the opportunity and finished the fight there as well.
I know that an El Paso guy. Well, what brought you into this combat sports world?
Man, you know, I've trained on and off jiu-jitsu, and then, you know, I'm a content creator. I came from the whole video game world, and I had the podcast going and was just training jiu-jitsu at my gym. You know, shout out to Grind Underground Jiu-Jitsu Club here in El Paso. And I wanted just to expand my content creation. I just started practicing taking pictures at the gym and doing videos. And I already kind of knew some people from the community down here as far as the fight game. And I was able to get into some promotions and just be there with the camera. And I just kind of picked it up from there, man. I enjoyed just covering the sport and, you know, giving guys some cool ass pictures and videos. I know that they bust their butt, you know, to be out there. So for me to capture it with video or photos for them to share with the world and, you know, cover the sport in the Southwest, I really enjoy it, man. So it's been awesome that everybody's so welcoming everywhere I go, or, you know, everywhere I can get into. So shout out to all the coaches, gyms, and, you know, promoters and fellow people like you in the media who are so welcoming every time that I'm at an event.
So how long has it been that you've been actively pursuing the media side of the combat sports game? Because it sounds like with the jiu-jitsu, you've been around the gyms and the scene for a while.
Yeah. So, man, I'm actually at about 1.5 years now. Yeah. about a year and a half now. Last August of 24, I covered my first amateur event. Didn't know what I was doing. I still don't know what I'm doing now, but I'm just out there hanging out and, supporting these girls and guys out there that, especially in the amateurs, how you were saying, man, like a lot of these folks out there, there's no money in this sport. They're willingly out there wanting to go out there and test themselves, challenge themselves, and, make a career out of this. So I just love being able to cover it, because I feel like with my content creation background, I feel like I can offer the community something, just to give these guys a small platform that I have with interviews or photos or whatever. And it's just awesome to be able to do it. And, just being everybody's so hospitable and welcoming, or anytime I work with folks, it's awesome. So very fortunate.
In a very similar story, I started because I just didn't feel like there was enough people talking about MMA. I'm watching the UFC and it wasn't on ESPN a lot at that point. And I'm like, this is the greatest thing ever. Why are more people not talking about it? And I was reading a Fighters Only magazine where they're like, if you want to cover it, get out and cover it. Just start covering the sport. YouTube led to journalism, that's led to radio and back to podcasting and so much more. But it's all just about this stuff is really awesome.
Yeah, man. And I had saw you at Fight World 40, but I didn't really get to talk to you. And I saw you, that I let you know ahead of time, like, hey man, I would like to meet you, because I respect what you do, man. I know you cover a lot of all the different combat sports, not just MMA. And I respect people in the media that do it the right way, and you are doing it the right way, man. So I respect that. And I draw inspiration from fighters and people like you that who want to be here for the right type of reasons.
Oh, appreciate that. Appreciate that. Love to see the content that you're putting together and how you're progressing. Getting back to the fight card, I think that Lorenzo Chavez and Jario, I might be wrong. I'm gonna have to ask him when I see him. Jario Brajas, the split decision fight, that was fight of the night. And that was a very high level fight between two debuters. I was shocked that it was their first ones.
Yeah, they look pretty composed. If I'm not mistaken, is Heidel is his name. And but yeah, you couldn't tell that was an amateur fight, man, because we're starting to see now, Michael. What do you think, that there's a lot of guys that have a lot of experience before they get in the cage? So when you see a guy that's 0-0, you really don't know what they're gonna bring. Is it this guy who's been training for a couple months, or is this just like a culmination of years of doing other stuff to finally be like, all right, let me get in there? And I think that was a perfect example of two guys that have been training for some time with some good people, and you could just see that they were showcasing all their skills out there for sure.
Right, because Barrios, stiff jab, really incredible calf kicks for somebody with that little of experience. And Chavez, his stance switches and his defensive awareness, not to mention really being up in the air, the knockdown late in the third round, I thought is what sealed the fight in his favor. Going after it in that manner, that showed a lot of instincts that you don't see out of guys in that first fight scenario.
Yeah, I've seen that sometimes, and no offense to any guys or girls, but sometimes you could just see how guys have that, or girls have that little killer instinct to want to try to finish it. And it was, from what I remember, and I'm taking pictures and I'm recording, so I don't remember everything. I always look back at the video, but it was going back and forth. Like, I was looking at somebody like, I think it could go either way. It could go either way. But you said it, with that knockdown at the end, I think sealed that round for him to make it easier for the judges to pick a winner.
Oh no, definitely was going to be a lot harder if that moment didn't happen. It was also kind of those first fight jitters, I think, is a bit of what we saw in the ladies fight. When you saw Amber versus Josie, you saw Amber, I think, very tentative and almost tense until she scored the knockdown in the last second of the first round. And then she was just a different athlete almost in the second and third rounds. You could just see the confidence that she was like, I can do this now. I know it.
Yeah, I was kind of looking her up a little bit. She has a Muay Thai background, so she's been fighting. This was her first, I guess, MMA fight. So I saw that how you were saying as she got her rhythm, she was putting things together. But shout out to Josie, man. She is tough. I mean, she took everything in the kitchen sink and was getting up and still going forward. And I respect that because that could have been an easy out for her to be like, hey, I got knocked down, I'm getting beat up, but to the very end, I heard her in the background, like in the back, she was like, I didn't even know that 3 rounds went by. Like she was busting her butt and made that very exciting for a ladies fight. We don't really get that many in the area, but man, those girls really put it out there.
You and I both know Freddie Sandoval. I'm sure he ran up to you and said the same thing that he said to me. She's a beast. She's a beast. When she got knocked down at the end of the first round, you could see the eyes and they were right on the ref. And the ref told her, if you can stand up, and she got right up and kind of felt that moment. If he wasn't making the judgment call because it was a knockdown, a stop it in the amateur fight, that proved that beast that Freddie said was in her, because there was no quit.
Yeah, there's like, I mean, and I'm sure you've seen millions of fights, and I'm starting to get to be able to judge character and stuff, but some people just have that in them to where, like, I don't care if I'm getting my butt kicked, I'm still getting up, I'm trying to advance, I'm defending, and not looking for a way out to where they can say, hey, I'm already losing this fight, might as well just call it quits. A lot of people have that little grit in them, and you can't teach that, right?
You can't teach the grit. Bring that up also with Alexis Balon, because there was someone that knew Brad Tarpley sitting right behind me. And when Tarpley got the armbar in the first round, I could clearly hear he's got a grappling background. That's checkmate. And to my surprise, he survived and made it to the next round. So that showed Balon had that heart, even though he ended up getting succumbed to a submission. The heart to get out of what looked like a fully extended armbar was something.
Yeah, and that was if I'm not mistaken, he had a mustache, shaved head, right? Yeah, and he fought Sergio last at FightWorld 40. You know what I mean? So he already had a tough test against Sergio. For him to come back, get in the ring, and then get it done, it was pretty cool, And shout out to Sergio. As Turpley was walking up to go back, I saw Sergio come up and say what's up to him on the side. So I thought that was kind of cool, because I know that Turpley, if I'm not mistaken, took that fight last minute to fight Sergio at FightWorld 40. So for him to get a full camp and to go in there to display his skills and get a win was pretty amazing to watch.
Also, Isaiah Garcia, the 190-pound catchweight bout, or 195-pound catchweight bout. Mikey Williams was a statuesque figure at 195.
Oh, I know.
That man,
he looked like a G.I. Joe.
Huge.
He looked like a G.I. Joe, bro. I was just like, holy smokes. But Isaiah Garcia, right? He was in there. He made it tough for him. He was grappling. He was he was taking him down. He wasn't giving him space. He was advancing. I think that was the only way, because when they were at the stand-up, you can see how he was trying to get those strikes in, but Isaiah did not want any of that and made sure he was punishing him once he got to the floor, right?
I saw the judges' scorecards, because in-house, they only read unanimous decision, split decision. I ran around. They let me look at it. The right hand that Williams landed in the first round, 2 judges off of damage gave him that first round. So we're talking about Garcia really had to embrace the grind and find that path to victory. And that just shows a load of grit of a guy that I saw afterwards. His team is convincing him, this is why you got to be a welterweight.
Yeah. I mean, guys have issues and girls have issues with weight, and not everybody fights at their prime weight sometimes, but that's just a perfect example how, a lot of guys are like, hey, if you just move down a weight class, you'd probably be better off. So, but at the time, he took the fight and, he felt comfortable enough to go in there, but and still got the win, right? But probably moving forward is probably going to be a different division, right?
Possibly a different division. I think that's what he's going to look to do. Possibly, maybe intensify that strength and condition a little bit. A guy that was dropping down in weight was Dion Valdez. This was the first time we saw him at 155 after the emotional submission win. I'm sitting next to the matchmaker. He's running over there. I want the title fight. I want the title fight. John Judy told him a couple more. It was your debut in the weight class. I had talked to him last week here on this show. He has endless enthusiasm for the sport.
I know. I've gotten to know him. I saw him at FightWorld 40. You know, he got that finish, and I was joking with him after. I was like, when he was kind of hitting his chest, you know, and he was doing all that. I was like, hey, for this next one, if you finish, are you gonna do it again? He's yeah, if I win, I'm gonna do it again. But he's gradually coming down in weight, and he looks good, man. Hey, I guess he told me he used to be a really big dude and just changed his diet and just slowly the weight is shedding. And I told him, I was like, hey, you want to go down one more? He's like, yeah, I'll probably go down one more weight class, but he's on his way because for his stature and his body frame, I think the 145 would probably be really good for him.
He said he wasn't that dehydrated, and I think officially weighed in around 154. So he came in under lightweight. It was his first time there, and I want to say maybe 80 to 100 pounds is what he had told me the weight loss has been overall. So it's an incredible transition what MMA has been able to do for him. A lot of promise and a lot of determination. If there's a fight that you want to talk about that I'm missing, let me know.
I mean, the championship fight, you know what I mean? That was good. That was a good test for John. I felt that Marvin was pushing the pace, you know what I mean? And they were getting after it. And that third round, that's when it seemed like the battle of attrition started coming into play. And John Wick was able to get that takedown and then get to that choke, which eventually ended the fight. So it was a great title fight for both of them.
Sandoval stuck him with some of those knees on the cage. He had him hurt, jumped on the choke, and credit the survival skills of Moreno can never be underestimated. We saw that against Romero in the first title fight where he had to play a lot of defense and overcome some awkward grappling. He does it again here. And then talk about seizing the moment. He saw the littlest bit of daylight and grabbed it and got that submission in definitely a fight where he was down those first two rounds.
Yeah, because that's what happened in his last fight when he got that title. And no, it went 5 rounds. It was a lot of grappling exchanges. And I had talked to him a little bit after and in between, but he's like, oh, yeah, we're going to work on that. You know, we're going to work on that. And he knows. A lot of these guys know, like, once you start moving up in these weight classes, you're going to meet guys that are really good grapplers. And if you cannot get up, you're going to probably lose the fight just because of a control and damage. So he was expecting, you know, a dogfight because he had said, I had talked to him in the back. He's like, you know, my last fight, I had a lot to give my gas tank wise. And he's like, I wasn't sure for a 5-round fight how it was going to go. He's all this time. He's like, I'm going to be pushing that pedal. And in that third round, I was looking at him. I was like, oh, he is not tired. I think Sandoval's slowing down a little bit, and that's what we saw.
Talk about El Paso fight scene turning out some incredible fighters, some incredible gyms right now. That flies a lot.
You're breaking up, brother. I can't hear you.
Big upset. You're putting their streak were 4 in a row, and it looked like this one, in my opinion, was going to possibly put him a FightWorld title.
I didn't hear a single thing you said, Mike. I am sorry. You blanked out for like the last 30 seconds. I didn't hear a single thing you said.
Okay, first thing, Rodzilla team, they're underrated. Got to give them some respect. Alejandro Cuero, crazy upset. Before that fight, I was thinking with the 4-fight win streak, Richard was going to be in line, an AFL, a CFC, a FightWorld title, possibly if he had got a win here. And instead, That was a huge upset.
Yeah, so I've known Jennings. I saw him fight at the Southwest Brawl a couple months ago. He looked good. And Alejandro, he fought at CFC main event. He took a fight last minute to fight a hometown favorite. He got finished in the first round, and I think he was trying to make a statement. So when him and Jennings were going at it, I didn't know that that matchup was lined up. And then I was like, oh, smokes, this is pretty good. And Alejandro got that spinning back fist, right? It was like a spinning back fist. It was kind of like a flash knockout, and it happened so fast. But yeah, I mean, for him to come up here and take on Jennings after having that streak, it was pretty awesome to see for sure.
That was a spectacular finish. Alejandro, and I talked to him, he wasn't sure if it was the elbow, the forearm. He didn't think it was his actual fist, but somewhere on the arm to the elbow landed, and Richard was like, yep, I got caught. That takes us to the main event. And Troy Green got held against the fence, got battered with knees, nearly face planted, and then somehow, I don't know how he survived the Anaconda choke. That's one of James's moves. He hits it on a lot of people and comes back to get that spectacular TKO off a hailstorm of right hands. What is that second and third round looking like from your perspective as a photographer trying to capture the moments?
Man, James was looking good. I've known of him. That was the first time I saw him fight, and he was looking good, man. And who was it? Troy. He was getting beat down those first two rounds, and then I was recording, and then I looked down and I'm like, oh, this is 5 minutes. Oh, this is a pro fight. And then I started seeing the tide change in that second round where James looked like he was slowing down a little bit. And Troy was like, all right, I'm tired of being on the floor. Let me get up. And it just seemed like it started swaying. The momentums started swaying the other way. And Troy was able to go in there and get the job done towards that end of that round. And it just seemed like James was gassed. He didn't complain or anything like that. It was an awesome fight to see because I've heard so much about James, and it was cool to see him fight. I'm sure he'll be back and, doing more things. But yeah, for Troy to come back and get that win, it was pretty amazing to see. I always give credit to everybody, but especially when we were just saying, when you're losing the fight and you could look for a way out and you don't, and you have that grit just to come back. It's amazing to see, man, because it's you could see it happening, and I was watching it happening. I didn't know he was going to end up winning, but I saw the tide starting to change for sure.
You could see the tide starting to change. I talked to members of his team afterwards, and they agreed it was a good stoppage. At first, when it first happened, because his knee was coming up as Joe was jumping in, I was shocked by it. And there was a couple people around me that went, oh. But once we saw the replay that was in slow motion, and then you kind of really get to see the impact of what was happening when those rights were landing, you're like, oh, okay, we're good. We're good. Good on the replay.
Yeah. We're always quick to criticize, right? As a casual fan, and I'm sitting here and I'm watching it, and then you watch the replay, and then you're like, okay, I'll just be quiet now.
Sometimes that one was definitely it. I was a crazy fight world. The comebacks, the title fight, wild knockouts in the first round. Definitely one of the better local shows that we've had in a while.
Yeah, man, it's awesome. To shout out to John Judy. He was when I went up there for Fight World 40, he was like, I normally don't let people in, but he was so welcoming because he's seen me work at other events. And I saw him down here in El Paso at CFC, and I was like, hey, I want to come up to Fight World 41. And he's like, what's stopping you? I was like, all right, cool. So I made time to make sure to go up there because, there was some El Paso guys fighting, but I'm trying to do my best just to get to know more and more fighters from out of town and try to get to these events. As long as I can get in the door, I do my best to try to cover the sport the best I can. There's so many great fighters that are under the radar. And I feel like just us talking about these events really helps them out in the promotions and everything. I feel like everybody wins for sure.
The more eyes, the better. And really, we talk about it right now at this stage, they're doing it for free, but the damage still counts. So the media, the attention, it still matters. Start cultivating the fan base right now. You know, I'm a huge Deadpool fan. I think I'm jealous of how much Deadpool stuff you have.
Oh man, I'm such a nerd, bro. I got look at this. Even my hard drive right here that I got a Deadpool. I got a bunch of stuff up here, man. I've been fortunate that people give me stuff all the time when they see Deadpool stuff. Yeah, thank you, brother.
Just noticing all that. I'm like, I got a Deadpool mask. I got a ton of shirts, my lanyard. I'll show you next time I see you.
Yeah. Did we just become best friends or what?
Hey, you know,
Hell
okay,
yeah.
so fast forwarding real quick to APFC. The funniest moment I have ever seen backstage at a fight happen, and I got to share that with everybody that's going to see this. Jalen Fuller wins, James Pleasant wins. They see each other backstage with their title belts. It's like, hey, let's take a photo together. And someone says, hey, you two look like brothers. And these two bust out the Wayans Brothers TV theme and high five at the end. And there is
Yes.
a photo.
Yes, that's cool. They acknowledge it. Hey, is everybody seeing this? Yeah, let's bend into it a little bit and make fun of it, right? Have fun with it.
So you weren't able to be there at APFC 21, but you said you were an interesting observer due to some teammates. Well, I still got a couple minutes before Austin Lewis joins. Who were the guys that you were watching on that card? Because I'm guessing one of them was Isaiah Solita, and I thought that was a heck of a back and forth that him and Ezekiel Romero had. I thought a couple of those teep kicks, keeping Solita off, might have made the difference in the rounds.
Yeah, it was going back and forth. Solaita has he's fought he's 4-7 now. You know what I mean? He has a lot of fights. He's only 19 years old. We started calling him anytime, anywhere. And he lives up to that. He's a young kid trying to get that experience. And it was, shout out to Ezekiel. He looked great. I know he had fought at FightWorld 40, if I'm not mistaken. And, for him to come back, get that win against a big opponent as far as stature, that was a good fight to watch for sure. Even though I went to the decisions, how you were saying, I think the teep kicks and keeping him at distance as best he could was the factor for sure for that win.
Chris Otero talent, he gets a submission in the third round. That fight was a grind for quite a while.
Yeah, and then that was his debut. Yeah, that was his debut too. Yeah, Alexis is one of the guys that was an old teammate of mine from jiu-jitsu, but I've such a calm guy. I just knew, like, if it goes to the floor, it's going to be very interesting. He's a high level grappler. He goes to ADDC trials all the time. Heavy grappler, but he could throw punches and kicks. But once he got to the floor, he got those hooks in, was just tagging him a couple times, and the ref had to step in. So for him to get that fight, 3-0 now in his amateur career, for sure, Alexis Ortiz.
And man, another guy, composure, he seemed like he was just taking a walk in the park, went out there, was like, huh, cool. Yeah, got that done. That was fun.
Yeah, he just really quiet, soft-spoken guy. One of the nicest guys. A lot of girls and guys are awesome. You know what I mean? But he is a true mixed martial artist. You know what I mean? He embodies that just humbleness, just trying to get better. You know what I mean? Carries himself well. He leads from the front from his gym, independent grappling. And, he teaches a lot of great students, and he's out there, training and fighting as well. So it's always awesome to see people like that, get those wins, because I know how hard they work.
Mike Sell finds himself on his back early after a kick, but that was cool because he wraps up an arm bar. That was quite some transitions he had on the ground.
Yeah, and Mike Sell, that's not the first time he's done that. He actually did that to Nico Dilasal at CFC. Nico was on top of him, hammering him. Mike grabbed that arm in the same fashion. As I was watching it happen, I was like, oh my goodness. and it was Vince Vega out of Punishers, out of Silver City. He got his arm caught and he just kept punching instead of trying to get that arm out. And Mike Cell got it done. I even messaged him after. I was like, man, you caught people slipping again, man. So to credit to Mike, you know what I mean? He was on his back taking some damage, but hey, mixed martial arts, right, Micah?
Definitely, definitely. That was the same thing where another heated almost fight of the night worthy between Baca and Uriarte. That one, I thought it came down to the damage that Juan was able to land. I told Frankie after the fight, he's like, how close was? I said, man, you get the takedown a little earlier in the third and you're able to do something with it. Maybe it goes your way, but he had the damage.
Yeah, and Juan did fight at FightWorld 40. That was his debut, and he was getting held down a lot. And he's a stand-up guy, so he knew he had to work on that defense and stuff. And Frankie, from what I heard from the broadcaster, like he was a stand-up guy, so I was like, oh, cool, we're gonna watch a kickboxing fight. Nope, you know what I mean? Straight for the takedown, was damaging Juan. You know what I mean? I felt that he was doing enough to win, but like how you were saying that Juan be able to get up and get some damage in, I felt like that was the how he squeaked by, you know what I mean? Because I was even surprised that he won. You know, nothing against Juan. Juan's one of the homies here in El Paso, but I was like, it's either gonna be a draw or Baca's gonna win. And sure enough, they gave it to Juan. I was like, okay, that's why I'm not a judge. You know what I mean? That's why I'm not a judge.
That was a close one. Frankie, from what I've been told, was a wrestler, and then we've seen him now at Nowhere to Run here locally 4 or 5 times do kickboxing. So became a kickboxer, roots in wrestling as he's trying to become a mixed martial artist. His teammate, Elijah Lucero, that next fight went from literally it looked like it was the bull and the matador to being able to crumble his opponent, and then the vicious ground and pound to where unfortunately Eric just couldn't get up and get to the stool after the round. That was some kind of turn of events from Lucero.
Yeah, Artiaga, man, out of Punishers in Silver City as well. He likes to say, what is that? He causes chaos, and he was straight just winging him. He was winging him at Elijah, and he caught him a couple times. And then toward the end of the round, I don't know if you remember, like it was the bell had gone off, and he got like one more elbow in, and it's not Elijah's job to stop. He keeps going until the ref goes. And then I thought Eric was gonna get up, and he kind of looked, and they were waiting, and nobody knew what was going on, and then ultimately couldn't get up. But yeah, shout out to Eric, man. He did exactly what he was gonna do. He's one of those guys like die by the shield, live by the shield type of guy. But shout out to Elijah for him to get that win, and now he moves up to 2-0, if I'm not mistaken, according here to Tapology.
We're almost out of time, so I'm going to jump ahead real quick and bring up there was an influencer on the card, Winged C. People have talked about him from Street Beefs, and it's not like he's unbeaten, but right here, his theatrics and some unorthodox defense, it led to getting clubbed and subbed, and that was something.
Yeah, credit to him. He might just be an influencer, but that guy could fight. Regardless of what he's doing or not, he could fight. But he did get caught there, and his opponent was able to go in there and get that finish toward the end. I heard that people were saying that he drops his hands, that head kick is coming, and sure enough, it's very interesting to see when coaches yell out that kind of stuff, and then the fighter actually listens and it happens. It was pretty amazing to watch, and for him to get that win against such somebody with a huge platform, you know what I mean? That and that goes back to what we're saying, like these wins help out these people, and it helps their brand and their career. So a win like that off of somebody with such a huge following is just going to spring him forward a little bit more than before.
Jimmy, It was great getting to talk to you tonight. Thank you for taking some time out to help me go through a lot of the amateur action from APFC 21, all the review from Fight World 41. Where can people keep up with what you're doing?
You can follow me on Instagram, Jimmy Dukes Combat. I'm covering the sport as a videographer, photographer, content creator, just a little bit of everything. So you want to check me out on there. YouTube, Jimmy Dukes Rodriguez. If you want to check me out, I have all my type of content on there. But Mike, I appreciate you, man, having me on. I just want to shout out one more fight, two more fights real quick. Devin Pepin and Elijah Quinn at APFC 21. Two dogs. I like both of them. They went at it back and forth. Devin had that head kick, and Elijah went down and got up and fought the rest of the fight. So shout out to him. Gabe Bencomo, a lot of people were counting him out for him to get that missile right and to end that fight with the flash knockout. Shout out to Gabe for that win, man. I just love seeing guys that work and put it all on the line. You know what I mean? Like, I'm one of those guys that I root for everybody from afar. And it was an amazing to see that guy get his win after, taking 2 losses. But thank you, Micah, for being so welcoming, man. Hopefully we could do this again if it makes sense, man. And I appreciate you, and I'll keep up with you, brother.
We'll talk to you soon. That was Jimmy Dukes. Thank you for joining us on My Fight Show. That was Jimmy